Kia ora koutou katoa, e hoa ma, no mai, haere mai, ki te papa tākaro or StayMe Always, bringing it to you organic, live and dynamic. Now bring me your cups. Cheers. Actually, I should have told you, Regan, to grab a cup. That's okay. I'll have 2 swigs for you. My bad.
I drank mine already.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I'll have some.
The drop.
I'll have some for you. So let's dip into the healing well. Now, I am absolutely privileged to have Regan Balzer on the show today, Māori artist, visual and multimedia artist, director of, now please, again, I did apologise before the show, my pronunciation, I'm still working on it, so I will get it. The director of Orowaru Arts, Contemporary Māori Arts Company, lecturer, educator, te atinga.
Perfect.
Yay, got it. Committee member, designer. I must admit, your resume is absolutely impressive, but you know what's more impressive? Your artwork. It is absolutely amazing. I got the opportunity of actually going through and strolling through your website, jumping on all your social pages, and as we spoke about at the beginning of the show, when I was a child, I just had this inspiration to paint. I'm not very good at drawing, but just to create. And you know, all of your paintings, your creations, your artwork absolutely resonated with me. And there was a couple of pieces that I absolutely loved. And I know I'm jumping before we get into actually talking about you, but I was so eager to actually jump straight into, you know, your talent. You did the, is it Waiora CD?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, the taonga pūoro and classic guitar.
I did the cover, yep.
The cover, yep. What's cool about that was the whole integration with art and music. Is that something that, was that your idea, or how did you come up with that, or where did that start?
Is that with, I think, just going forward a bit to more what's happening now. So because we're more on the digital age and we have access to people via the internet, but not, you know, we can't tangibly touch them. It's really pushed creatives in a different way to one, connect with people, to find our own wellness, as well as to hopefully uplift others through creating. So that's really opened up for a lot of creatives other avenues of working together. So if I just go back a bit, so my whole art practice is actually focused on uplifting our whānau and getting our Māori narratives and positive stories of our whānau out there, because, you know, in media and throughout my childhood, there were always the negative stereotypes being put forward of Māori, you know, and it got to the point actually where a lot of my friends believed that. So they believed that that's all that they could aspire to, or, you know, those negative stereotypes were kind of the main thing that they could follow. So my artwork really focuses on celebrating the gifts and the treasures that we have, because our culture is so rich and deep and dynamic and comes from a wealth of mātauranga and understanding the world around us. And also is very relevant today, you know, in our everyday lives, because he toto Māori, we, you know, our ancestors are Māori, and even though a lot of us can't kōrero Māori, we still feel it, you know, when you see or hear a haka, you feel it. Or when you go out and touch Papa Tuanuku, you know, you can feel her. Or when you're in the ocean, you can hear karanga coming in, rolling over the waves.
Wow,
So,
really.
you know, intrinsically it's within us. So with my art, that's kind of the areas that I like to try and celebrate and bring to the forefront. So the cool thing with music and visual arts, I've started actually a type of performance art where I'll paint a whole painting alongside someone playing music. So often it's Horomona Horo playing his taonga pūoro, or a guitarist, or a combination. And the beautiful thing is often I don't have a prescribed image or picture that will be painted. It kind of slowly manifests through layers of paint and what's happening in the music, what emotions we're going through, and what things come through at the time. So it can be quite unnerving not knowing where you're ending up. But often it's like life, you kind of trial this avenue and that doesn't work, so you trial this and that was pretty cool, but let's go over here. So we've been exploring that recently, which has been really cool.
That's cool. And I loved how you used those keywords. You use the music and you take the emotion and you allow yourself to immerse, I suppose, into your senses. Because on the show, we talk a lot about using your senses to help guide you through, as you say, through life, to help you to distinguish pathways, your journey, those stepping stones. And sometimes, depending upon the circumstance, it can actually give you the answer to decipher whether that's the right thing, the correct thing to do, or possibly not. So, I loved how you were able to, use that as an example in terms of how you create. Um, your artistic preeminence has been showcased all over the world. I love your Mana Moana water screen that you did. Now, just tell us, how did that come about? And kind of, if you can give us all a bit of a visual picture in our minds, what you did. Obviously, I've seen it and it's amazing, but to show and allow viewers to really understand in their head what it looks like, can you tell us about it?
So it's quite interesting how that came about. And when I was a young artist, um, one really important piece of advice that was given to me was uh, be nice, be nice to people, and you know, make contacts that are meaningful, because people will remember how they feel when they meet you. They may not remember what you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So I've kind of stuck to that throughout, dealing with people, or I've tried to. Sometimes it's hard, but anyway, it's funny because now, as a more established artist, a lot of those contacts that I've made over the years, they'll remember things. So I was brought on board this kaupapa Mana Moana, which is pretty huge actually. The artists in there are amazing, visual artists, performers, and musicians. And we were given, we were put into groups, and then we were given the task of creating an artwork that was visual as well as incorporated music. So I was with Horomona and Lawton Kora, and we'd never worked with Lawton before. He's an amazing creative, amazing. And we only had a short time frame, so they were wanting something created around matariki. And I'd recently had an exhibition in Silo 6 in Auckland, and had painted artworks that were between 5 and 12 meters long, and they were about matariki. So what I did was I photographed those pieces and then shrunk them down and animated them into a cartoon form. So they're actually huge artworks, but they become little characters, and they animated the characters to depict the different whetū of matariki. So yeah, and that was, and then the soundtrack was put to the imagery, which is really special, and that totally just adds to the whole effect. Now, because there was COVID lockdowns last year, they couldn't have the water screen, so they created an online digital exhibition space, which has a digital water, black water, and then the image is reflected into the water like it was an actual water screen. So it's pretty magical. And then this year they actually were able to show that at the Matariki Festival in Wellington on the water in the harbour.
Fantastic, great. And I do urge everybody, if you get the opportunity, to jump on Regan's website, because the art is next level. You know, I use the word preeminence, and I actually ask, oh, Teasy created over here, what's the word for, you know, amazing, beautiful, you know, speechless. So yeah, we came up with preeminence. So definitely check it out.
Exquisite would be another word. I've been hanging out with Joshua. Joshua, not too much.
Oh, Josh, too much, yeah. He's a clever fella, that one.
We're surrounded by amazing, beautiful people. So, Regan, do you want to give us a little bit of a synopsis of your life and where you come from, and a bit of a glance and a snapshot of your journey up until this far?
So I was brought up in between Hamilton, Kirikiriroa and Rotorua. And my young years, I was brought up with my grandmother, actually. So, you know, had a very sheltered and comfortable upbringing. And I was with her because my mother was pretty much a freedom fighter. So she fought for everybody's rights as she was out there doing the mahi. So I was at home safe with Nan, having my roast dinners and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, growing up with someone of that generation, you get taught a lot of different skills. And I really appreciate that time with my grandparents. And yeah, so growing up in Rotorua, going to Western Heights, we were never actually given the option to go to university or kind of aspire to other things. That was for other whānau, mostly Pākehās, but you know. So going to university was way out of my even scope. So I felt kind of lost in my teenage years, actually. It wasn't when I left school, wasn't quite sure what to do. And I always wanted to be an artist, but of course Nan thought there's no money in art. So why don't you go and be a teacher or something else like that? Yeah, so I went and tried that. But I was even a nanny in Florida for a bit. Tried all sorts of things. Georgie pie.
Oh, nothing wrong with Georgia pie.
The one in Rotorua.
Yeah, the dollar pies.
I remember that one.
Oh, I
was
was
the
the cook
best.
girl. I sold dollar cookies.
Oh yeah.
Markins, I think they used to be called.
Um, but yeah, so actually, it wasn't until I came back to my art, you know, felt like something was missing for a very long time, like had a big hole in myself. And when we had our first daughter, it was actually when I was looking at her and I thought, man, this baby's got all her life ahead of her, and I wonder what she's going to do. It's, you know, it's so exciting and all that sort of stuff. And I wanted her to follow her dreams. And then I realized actually for her to do that, I needed to be the example. So it was from that point that I realized I needed to follow my dreams, which was to be an artist. So I painted a big mural, and then that was it. I was on my journey. Yeah, so I've just really plodded away, have had to work part-time teaching while developing my art practice. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And ever since I've been on that journey, I've traveled the world. Uh, I've been able to just create, and people actually appreciate my work, um, inspire. I've been a part of some amazing projects. Yeah, so definitely recommend it. And actually, money has been, I've been far more well off doing art than I have when I was teaching. Yeah, so I guess when you're passionate about something, then it's not work, you know, yeah, it's exciting, it's invigorating.
Absolutely.
Right. I suppose now, just in the current circumstances of where we are right now with COVID, and going back to your comment about being an artist and being more well off now than being a teacher, you know, I take my hat off to those teachers who are standing their ground with the vaccines, and if they choose not to, you know, some of them are losing their jobs because of what's happening. And it just goes to show that no matter what industry you go into, you kind of need to have a bit of a backup. And in your case, you chose to continue that pathway, and the driver was your daughter, to actually develop your creativity, you know, your artistic talents and skills, for multiple reasons. So, you know, I take my hat off to you. And talking about talents and gifts, you know, you spoke about your daughter being an inspiration. Was there any other influences that made you want to really continue to carry on and kind of find out those artistic and creative skills and endeavors?
I guess if you're wanting to pursue an area, the best thing to do is surround yourself with like-minded people. And with that, you learn together. They'll share the struggles that they go through and how they overcome those struggles. But also they'll share the successes and how that happens too. And the beautiful thing with Māori art is there's a space for everybody. You know, there's people who think they have to compete, but actually there's, on a global scale, there's not many of us in the world. So there's so many areas that we can go into. So really we should be uplifting and supporting each other into success, because, wow, you know, the world is our oyster.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's been so many inspirations along the way, but you know, my mum's probably my key inspiration. She always said to me that, you know, I can achieve whatever I set my mind to think outside the box and not limit myself to other people's expectations or what other people say. So, yeah.
Great.
I'm gonna steal a question here, and I give some aroha to our tāne, kia pūrua, kia koe anake Regan. What kind of inspiration has horo been to you over the years, and how did you two meet?
Those are two big questions.
I know, that's why I asked.
I'll start with the second one. So when we were young, we were both involved in a youth group. So Horomona was in a group called Toa, Te Ohonga Ake, and they took a kaupapa around the motu to different schools and different places, promoting the Fifth World Indigenous Youth Conference. And I was a part of the group, but not the touring group, in terms of they had really cool parties and they were really cool people. So I like to hang out with them. So I'd travel up north and they had really interesting conversations as well, you know, about self-determination and the reo and being pro-Māori. So it was really a really inspirational time. And when the conference was actually happening, Horomona had been planning for maybe 2 years for this conference. And then when he got there, they had a sacred fire. And the sacred fire, you know, the ashes had been brought over from Canada to light this fire. And Horomona saw this and people were throwing rubbish into the fire, and he got really upset and he said, "Oh, this is so bad. Someone needs to look after this fire." So he sat there at that fire for the whole conference.
Wow.
And so for me, it wasn't because he didn't have mahi, he didn't have a car, you know, he didn't have flash clothes, but it was his heart that I saw, you know, and it was his potential, because if he could sit there and dedicate himself to the kaupapa that, you know, he was so strong about, and not enjoy all the other things that were happening in the conference that he'd wanted to be a part of, then that was the person that I wanted to be with, was someone who, you know, had that really strong integrity. So that's what attracted to me to him really. And apart from he's amazing, you know, skilled and tall and handsome and all that sort of stuff. But that was the main thing.
Runs a whānau from Te Tai Rāpiti.
The graces. They're all tall and handsome, aren't they? Yeah, and what was the other question?
Oh, you pretty much answered both of them in one excerpt. So I asked you, how does he inspire you? So that's inspiration and the reason why you chose them all in one. So yeah, that's enough. But if you want to elaborate further, feel free.
Well, he's just continued to do that throughout. We've been together over 21 years now, and he always maintains his integrity in every situation. And if he's there for the kaupapa, he's there for the kaupapa. You know, me, I'm like, babe, that's a cool kaupapa, but look at these flowers, aren't they beautiful? And he's like, I'm not looking at the flowers, I'm here for the kaupapa. I'm like, okay.
Actually, that's something I think I would do as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you and Jamie are very much the same in that regard.
No, that's so cool. We spoke earlier about mental well-being, emotional wellness, and the Healing Well is a place, a safe place that we can converse and talk about these particular areas. And then I've also integrated spiritual awareness into it as well. Life is hard enough as it is. The everyday struggles, the situations affecting everybody. And what's great about the show is that we converse with so many different amazing, beautiful, wahine and tane from around the world with totally different backgrounds. It's not just Māori. We're going to have various different cultures on the show, but what the show is really good at is really giving back to help people to help fight the difficulties that they're facing with their life, especially, as I said, with their mental well-being and emotional wellness. And we also spoke about, your involvement, and you're currently with Te Ora, a Māori health organisation. So do you want to tell us a little about your involvement there and this great app that you were talking to me about?
Yes, so as part of another mahi that I do, as a visual artist, it's often about creating things that you love to create and putting it out there. But there's nothing like a tangible output to be able to incorporate those skills and then touch a lot of people, which is beautiful to be able to do. And Te Ora, being a national health organisation, has been that vehicle for me to be able to do that. So last year in COVID, in the lockdown, we noticed there were a lot of whānau who were struggling and they didn't have easy access to services and counsellors and all that sort of stuff. So what we did is we started looking at an app to support whānau and help them identify if they're feeling out of sorts or if they're seeing somebody and they want to know what are some of the things to watch out for, especially in terms of depression, suicide, self-harm, all those sort of things. So the app helps people to identify at times when someone may be going through mental distress, but also provides tools and activities to help maintain wellness. And it comes from a kaupapa Māori perspective. And the beautiful thing is it's got some of our tikanga mahi in there. It's got our whakatauki. It's got our taonga pūoro. Has brown people in there. So, well, Māori come in all different shades. So there's images in all different shades. There's nearly 100 images in there that I help work on with the app developers. There's not much writing, there's a little bit of reading, but there's also a voiceover. So if people can't read very well, or if they're sight impaired, then they can listen to a voiceover. So that's pretty exciting. That was just released this year, and is really accessible. So it's available on iTunes as well as Google Store. And it's just called the Manaaki Ora app. But yeah, really excited to have that out there. And I don't know if you two have made an app before, but it's quite a different headspace to get your head into, as something that's going to function, also something that people are going to actually interact and use. Yeah, so it was quite a journey. 1 year it took to make that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, no, I have not had the pleasure, and by the sounds of it, I'm happy to hand that over to someone else, to be fair. I'm happy to do the content, but I think that's about it. I know our Teasy creator over here has dabbled in that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very familiar with apps and the different APIs. I created an app that, I don't know if I should say it on the show.
No.
It's called Trav Safe, which is basically an acronym for Travel Safe, and it's for whānau when they're traveling anywhere in the world. And if they get lost or lose their way anywhere, then they can use the app and call for help. And then that help will come in the form of drones initially to get sight on, eyes on, and then someone will come and pick them up. And then the other one that I developed last year was for my Botox clinics in Melbourne, which was a web-based app. So you got different types, obviously. So you can have a web-based app where people will go to your website, go in, and they can book services, etc. And then you can just have an outright API app, which sounds like what you guys have got, and then that services people, with the different provisions in it. But yeah, definitely familiar with app creation.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. The cool thing with this app is you can download it on your phone, and then you don't need the internet to use it.
Right.
And we can't access the information, so it all stays private on your own phone. So if you're entering private information, or whatever you enter on it, phone numbers and things, it just stays with them. Which, because a lot of our whānau are a bit suspicious of the, our property and intellectual knowledge and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I was just about to say that it's so important, because if you can trust, and it is hard to trust a company, let alone anything to do with that digital space with your kaupapa, etc. But that's really good to know, and that's something that will help to appease people, knowing that when they access it, their information will remain safe. We were mentioned that you were a lecturer and an educator. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of your journey in terms of your students that have come through, and if you've had to, mentor or coach any of them within this whole order space.
So I haven't taught for officially in a full-time role for a while. I've been working at Te Raupara, which is a Māori health provider, for 3.5 years now, though I do teach a cultural training program. So that's looking at working with health workers and whānau, so that they're able to engage and work with whānau Māori for suicide prevention, pretty much. So that's what I've been doing. But previous to that, so I'm trained in kura kaupapa Māori teaching, primary trained, but focused on wharekura, which is high school, and taught mainly maths and art and a bit of science. And it's funny because all of those really connect to each other. And for me, art is life. So art permeates into everything. It's not separate. So it's nice to incorporate those different kaupapa. And from there, taught a bit in university and Te Wānanga Aotearoa, where I taught the degree in contemporary Māori visual arts for 3 years. So it's been quite a varied mahi. Actually, when you see my CV, it's quite hard to believe that I've done everything, because I do things simultaneously. So at the moment, I work at Te Raupara in suicide prevention, but I'm also the director of a company, visual artist, and have another other kaupapa happening. So
Yep.
it kind of builds up when you work like that over time, as I'm sure you two can appreciate all the different
Yeah,
things you do.
Oh, I have to sit with it every day. So I absolutely appreciate how much it takes. And you know, it's that whole connection that you have with yourself to be able to maintain the workload and actually keep uplifted every single day, which, sometimes can be hard, which I'm sure you're probably amazing at it now after all those years of trialing how that all works.
Yeah, sorry, I think now I'm a bit older, I understand the cycle, the cycle of a creative. So, you'll get on the waka and you'll be just like, "Arrgh, mahi, mahi, mahi." And then once the project's finished, or, just before the project's finished, there's like this big hump.
Yes.
It's like, "Ugh, is it going to happen?" And then, poof, you get over it. Yes, it happened. And then you have the big slump,
Yeah.
and the,
Yeah.
well, sometimes you can't kind of delve in that too much because you've not got another mahi happening, but that is definitely the cycle, eh? You don't often operate like this.
No.
And I guess, it gets a bit addictive too, because you have that adrenaline rush, and then you jump over, and then you
Just ride it for a bit and then you slump, like you said, and you're off again.
yeah, yeah. But when you're in the slump, that's the bit when you can get quite down on yourself, oh, I'm just useless, I'm not doing anything, or who am I, what am I doing here, that sort of thing. But just to know that that slump won't last, and once you get that time to rest and recoup, then you'll get back up. Yeah.
Tell us about that slump for you, if you don't mind. I know for myself, which this is probably not a great approach, but you grind and you just keep going. You're on that treadmill, you're in that wheel, constantly going all the time. You don't actually stop to appreciate. So the problem I have is I never stop to appreciate the wins and the achievements. So then I downplay all of my efforts, and then I jump back on the bandwagon and I just keep going, which I've been often told of late. I need to actually stop and appreciate it, because that understanding of appreciation and gratitude that you give to yourself actually will change you emotionally and spiritually. I don't know what
Yeah.
that's for you.
Uh, I think for me, because I agree with you that it's quite hard to do sometimes, but also for me, it's actually more about the process, and the results at the end, that's cool. But actually, it's that challenge of the process, which I really love. Yeah. And then having something out the other end, that's awesome. You guys can appreciate that. But I'm on to my next mahi.
Yes.
So it is important, though, to find that space where you can be toe and rest, and whatever that is for you, and soak it up. But for me, I don't necessarily stand back and go, that's amazing. I did an amazing job. I mean, sometimes I might, but usually it's like, yeah, did it. Okay, where are we to next? Yeah, that was so cool. And you forget about all the hard stuff until you're doing it again, and you're like, oh, geez, that's right.
Exactly. Talk
Yeah.
us through the work that you do in regards to that suicide prevention. That's something that constantly comes up. It's not heard of in the news, but we know within the communities, within our families, within the whānau, something's happening within the families that we hear about on a regular basis. What sort of advice, now that you've created this app and obviously with the workers, the health workers you work with, what kind of advice that you can impart to try and help people on the daily?
Oh, well, I guess there's a lot of aspects. So the app is out there for anyone to use, and you don't have to engage with someone else to use it. So that's quite nice. If you're going through stuff yourself, often you don't want other people to be a part of it until you're ready. So you can use the app and just go through it yourself and see if it helps, and try anything. One thing I heard the other day was actually, just from a TikTok actually. Um, Sometimes it's just the smallest things that can help you. And so what he does is when he gets up in the morning and he's feeling low, he pulls his shoulders back and stands up, sits up straight, and automatically he feels this energy, this lift,
Mm.
because it's hard to be kind of all,
Hunched over.
down, hunched over if you're back like this, and then you're getting maximum oxygen. So just those small things. But also there's some other things. So if you know a whānau that's experienced a suicide, um, they need ongoing support even after the tangihana,
Yep.
because that's actually the hardest time is when they're alone, when all those voices are ticking over. And don't be scared to be with them. And sometimes you don't even have to talk about it or say anything, just to sit there and just to be with the whānau, be with your whānau, not on your phone, but just be there. Um, some people talk about, the cup of tea, just having a cup of tea and how important that is.
Yep.
When I was young, we used to always go and stop and have cup of teas with people, and that doesn't happen so much now.
Yep.
But just paying a visit really uplifts someone and makes them feel valued. You don't have to go all deep and all that. And if someone goes emotional and stuff, just let them do it. You don't have to take it on board. Yeah, and another key one is, I mean, there's a whole lot of things, but just watch your friends and whānau, and if you see that things are really taumaha, there's a lot of stuff happening that it will be hard for you to handle, then maybe just sit with them and have a chat. Uh, because a lot of our whānau will put a smile on their face and say, "Yeah, I'm all good. I'm
Yep.
all good." Yeah. But if you know something something's happened, something traumatic, or even, one also is our elite sports people, those people in really high pressure jobs. Um, those are ones, just to keep touching base with those ones. And awhi, a lot of our whānau who can't work at the moment because of lockdown,
Yep.
just keep touching base with them and see how they're doing. And there's avenues, there's funding available, there's different stuff that they may not know about, which may just help relieve the pressure. So it's all about that, being prepared, research. Don't wait until after, because that could be too late.
Mm.
Yeah, just a cup of tea, a kia ora, a text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot, with our young tamariki and, what they watch on TV and what they hear, what's on social media, the way they need to look, the way they need to act. The influence is massive, and it's so different to when we were growing up, when we were children, that on the show we talk about our first 7 years and the effect that growing up within that time frame ultimately can have an absolutely detrimental effect on where you go and how you shape your future going forward. Yeah, have you had young tamariki that you've had to mentor or talk to or had any involvement with or experience that's going through these kinds of situations?
Yes, well, even my own children. So our eldest one, she's quite sensitive. So, to say anything to her, she takes it on board. And I think she was quite open and exposed. So it is important to keep those communication lines open and talk. And it's hard with the kids because they get annoyed. They don't want to talk to you. But if you can't talk to them, then maybe auntie can. Maybe one of their cousins can. Um, someone that are going to give them the right information and messages. And as long as they have someone there. Our rangatahi and tamariki are very worldly at the moment, now. They are exposed to all the negative stuff, but they're also exposed to a whole wealth of strength building things. So they're constantly in their head weighing things up. So it's just making sure that they understand what to take on board. Yeah, it's pretty tricky. And my son, he's actually chosen not to be on social media at all because he just finds it too negative. Yeah, which is quite interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be exactly how you're saying. It can be really polarizing. A few months ago, Jamie and I, we shaped this recruiting process where we formulated some questions in order to gauge people's psychology and their psyche and how they approach everything. And you brought out an absolutely imperative element in your corridor just now, where young people, and I'm not being disparaging towards superstars, but they look to people who are superstars for advice, and when most of those superstars don't actually have any life experience, what they're subscribing to, there's no wellness in that, there's no hauora in that, and that's why this is a real beautiful space where we can all come together and kōrero about wellness, especially about that particular element that you brought up. What are we subscribing to, and according to who and why? And that's why when I hear people kōrero, I listen to the elements that they're weaving into their pūkaya, because you hear a lot about what actually gives them their foundation or what doesn't give them any foundation. And I think it's really important, especially with all the things that you've talked about in the show thus far. Who are we subscribing to and why? And I think that's super important because our rangatahi are out there, and as you said, they're very worldly. They're tuning into different frequencies, different people, different energies. And as you can see in the world all around us, it's punctuated with lots of beauty, but there's also a lot of kino out there as well. And if I was to be honest, it's probably congested with kino stuff more so than good stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting you say that because Horomo and I have just found the world of TikTok. And our youngest has been on TikTok for a long time, she's always scrolling through things. And we've actually we've started adding content. And the content is pro Māori actually, and just doing what we do, being creative. But when I scroll through TikTok, there's so much negative stuff on there. It's just like flip. That we need more positive content on there, especially kaupapa Māori, and positive examples. Because even the examples of relationships on there, they're often playing tricks on each other or swearing at each other. Those I don't want that role model for my tamariki, for any tamariki. Yeah, relationships shouldn't be like that. So it's been quite interesting because the feedback from our TikTok is about the relationship between me and Horomona and how we play together, how we're friends. And it's about that shared respect for each other. And he gets annoyed at me, but he'll still do what I say, that sort of thing.
Good on you, Horomo.
Yeah, I know what that's like, cousin.
He'll just breathe.
But that's so cool because that's exactly how you would want your kids to see you. They see what you do every day, and then to see it in that platform actually gives another level of respect as well. But then it also shows a lot of children, a lot of students, a lot of people, men, women, doesn't matter really what age, that you can have and still to this day have healthy relationships.
Yeah, that's right. And showing it's not always easy, but there are ways to work through those things, eh? Yeah. That's right.
Absolutely.
And I get,
sorry, you go.
it just reminded me of when, right back when we had our daughter, and I looked at her and And I realized that I had to actually be an example for her to know she could follow her dreams. I guess the TikTok, in a way, it's kind of like that. It's role modeling that behavior that is positive, that is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to start taking TikToks of myself giving Jamie chocolates and flowers and all those things I do for her every day.
Sounds
I'll
great.
be expecting it, mate.
Yeah. I mean, we have a symbiotic relationship, very same, very similar to you and Horomona, where you have a lot of cross cover mahi that you probably do with each other. If I'm discerning your kōrero correctly, because Jamie and I, we basically live in each other's pockets. We've got our Amazon business, we've got a music publishing business. We're about to launch playups.com, which will be an LLC based company in the USA, and then just building off that. But you're always building, we're always evolving, looking for new opportunities. And so I hear the incipient stages of your relationship, and then obviously you as an individual, him as an individual, and then how you bring that together and create amazing spaces that can be absolutely efficacious in how they contribute to rangatahi and to everybody around you, irrespective and regardless of the age, what their capacities are, because it really doesn't matter. What it's about is unity, kotahitanga, and that's what our culture really brings to the world. And people celebrate the All Blacks. They don't actually realize that that's our culture. That's why that's where the mana lies, and really it's about awhi, about manaaki, about tautoko, and all those beautiful pillars of our culture.
And you're talking about your relationship, just building a healthy relationship. What is a healthy relationship to you? Because again, as we mentioned, some people are going to have a perception that potentially is probably not exactly the ideal situation. So, what would that look like for you?
I'll mainly speak on my own relationship. So Horomona and I were friends first for 2 years. So we had a relationship as a friendship before we got together. Now, when we got together, I was pregnant within 3 months. So, it was pretty much, we just knew. And so because it started as a friendship, we've continued the friendship.
Yep.
And the thing with relationships is you are two different people. You're not one person, you're two people. So it takes constant work. It's not all roses and ice creams. I mean, maybe for some people, but generally, especially creatives, Horomona and I are quite dynamic personalities. So, we can be kind of like, rah, and then,
Yeah.
kind of, So over time, we've learnt to ebb and flow with each other and understand each other more. And the longer we've been together, the more we understand our relationship. Actually, it's like fine wine. It definitely is like fine wine. Through age, it becomes sweeter. And I feel that we've gotten closer and closer over the years, actually, because often those hard times, when there's been hard times, it's how we've worked through it and come out the other side, which has been like a glue, really. It's brought us closer together. So I'm really enjoying this phase at the moment, where we seem to understand each other a lot more. For most of our careers, we worked separately. And it's only recently we've started coming together to collaborate more together. And there's great power in that, actually, because we know each other so well and understand, and there's things we don't have to explain and say. And we know how to rack each other up as well. And I like a good debate. Some couples say everything's nice all the time, but actually I like to have a bit of an argue now and again. And what do you think of this? And but it's one key thing is not to hold on to that hara or that raru. Just get it out and come to some common ground and then get over it, because you've got some other cool stuff along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really hard at the moment, just with the lockdown and the amount of weeks that everybody's had to endure in their four walls and in their box. And I know relationships are always going to be at the fore in discussions, because you whoever you're living with, whether it's with a partner or a friend or a family, etc., you are stuck in that confined space where you're going to be at each other all the time. But it's knowing those key things that will continue the relationship going forward, and not actually holding on to the small things. And like we say all the time, don't sweat the small stuff. Although, I sweat the small stuff sometimes. You crap all over the ground anyway. But it's the fact that you do have to, again, continue to make yourself aware of what was the reason why you actually fell in love with that individual to start with, and continue to hold on to that, because that's what will get you through at the end of the day. Once they decide to lift this lockdown, I think everyone will actually have a sigh of relief.
Yeah, well, just before lockdown, because Horomon and I work quite closely together, different buildings and institutions, but we'd always make time to, once during the week have a date lunch type thing, and we'd go to a special kai place. So now being at home, we seem to work more. So what we've done is we find a space every day to play a game together, just that time, link feet and try and beat each other in a game. Something like that. Yeah, just finding that time for just you two. And that's hard sometimes when you have young children and lots of work, but yeah.
Yeah, no, all about that. I have two girls, 9 and 6, and always competing for attention, so I understand. But one more question before we wrap it up, and it was to go back to when we were talking about our tamariki, and you mentioned your son has made the decision not to go on social media. How old is he, if you don't mind me asking?
He's 18, but he's done that for many years. So he was playing in reps for basketball, and his coaches were getting upset and messaging me because he wasn't answering any of their Facebook messages. And so when I hit him up, he said, "Mum, I don't do social media." I was like, and he was quite young then, 15, 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's, I think, for me, just hearing that, is that there's a lot of inspiration that can then be filtered through to the youth these days, and getting them to understand that, the reasons why he's chosen to do that, and then to help people to understand that life can look very differently outside of social media. So I just thought it was a really good point to bring that up, because ultimately that's exactly where they sit, is in that social media space. And that's cool to hear that your son has made that decision himself, because again, we talk about decision making, and you have to actually make a decision, then put the action into play in order for it to actually come to fruition and move forward. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, especially I guess when all your friends are doing it, it's
Yeah.
quite a different thing to do. But for him, he only wants to socialize with the people that he knows and likes, and so he'll just do that over, one-to-one.
Yep. And that's cool. That is so
And he's
cool.
not into gossip. He's not into what everyone else is doing.
No, and that's cool. That's, these days, with the type of work I have, we have a lot of young girls, and, obviously for our businesses, we're on social media because it's a case of having to. It's a form of marketing to build the business. But a lot of the young girls that I work with, it's purely for image. It's for the likes, etc. So, to hear that from a young male, it's definitely something that can help to inspire and help, I think, a lot of young ones to understand as well. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I didn't think of it like that.
Before we go, I just wanted to ask you, what's your favorite color?
Orange,
Orange.
And why?
because it has lots of energy. It's creative. And when I was growing up, no one liked orange. So I like doing things that are different.
On
So
you.
orange it was.
What's Horo's favourite colour?
Blue.
Blue, eh? Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. So they're complementary colours, and they're even on the colour wheel. They're even complementary colours as well.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting too. So when we got together, there were lots of tohu.
Yeah.
Signs along the way. Yeah, that was one of them. Then we looked up in the sky, and there were these the star constellation, and one of the stars were orange and one was blue.
Yeah.
And then it came together in a triangle, and there were these 3 little dots on the other part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got 3 kids, so it was kind of like things were quite uncannily evolving. Yeah, there were lots of tohu, and I won't go into it, but one day I might write the story.
Please do.
Look, that resonates with us because part of one of the 3 totem poles for Jamie's show is spiritual awareness, and because as Māori, we're very spiritual and we're very in tune with the spiritual elements that go on around us, whether they appear visually to us or whether we can sense them with our senses. It's another one of the beautiful elements of our culture, te ao Māori, te ao Wairua.
That's it, and I think a lot of our whānau have been they've been tuned out of those that awareness, and blocks have been put up either by others or themselves or whatever to distrust themselves, and it's really important to keep that awareness open of the tohu and those signs and things that are going on, because it'll guide you. Yeah, and has guided us, over to Turkey and Miami and the South Island. Yeah.
Likewise. Turkey,
Yeah.
Cappadocia, Anatolia, all those beautiful places, the mushroom castles.
Yeah, beautiful places, that you just see on TV and think that they're dreams.
Yeah, until you go there.
So you go there,
yeah.
and then you're like, oh, I'm in the TV set.
Yeah.
Exactly. Eh?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, Regan, look, it was absolutely a pleasure having you on the show, and I thank you so much. I would love to have you back. I'd love to hear, more about your work with suicide prevention and any further developments with the app, and obviously in regards to your creative artistic skills, because I'm in awe with your paintings and I'm sure, and your artwork, and I'm sure our viewers would absolutely love to hear a little bit more about where this evolved and get into the detail. So thank you so much. We muchly, Teezy and I, appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, we've got a couple of taonga to share with you too. So text Jamie your address, because I've been trying to get it off their cousin of mine, and he's so flipping. You know exactly what he's like. And then we'll drop off a couple of our pop-up cubes for you and Horo and the kids. They
Cool.
to de-stress.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Teezy.
No,
losses.
losses to you.
Did Jamie tell you what happened when she called?
No.
She goes, I'm Teezy's partner. I was like, Teezy? Oh, Poe. losses. So cool.
I actually asked him about that, and afterwards, and he was able to give me the story. So
yeah, well, I explain it right now actually for those who are being intrigued. So once upon a time, many moons ago, myself and one professor, Joshua Rogers, at my whanaunga from Tōrere, and then obviously Horomona Horo, my whanaunga from Te Tairāwhiti, on Tuparo. So we went on this Alan Duff's Books and Homes tour, and we were staying at this hotel one night, and Josh, it's always when we always start it because he's so debonair in his ways and very well educated, but also a hori. And so he knows how to weave all the magic and the funniness into everything, man. He's just brilliant at it. And he looked at him and me, and I walked in, because I was quite big then, big and muscly, and obviously Horo was way bigger than I am. And then he just looks at us, wow, it's the Paumosus and the Holocaust. And I turned around to Horo and I go, well, you must be the Joshua.
I have a new nickname now.
Oh, what?
Colossus. I'm gonna adopt that one and keep it going.
What's the name you never forget?
With those two, and hopefully we'll have some more. And obviously, with our wahine side by side, I won't say in tow, because in our culture we do it together. Especially the new culture that we're creating with hauora and how people view their partners. It's no longer the males in front, the women's at the back. We're side by side.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Regan, for being on the show, and we definitely want you back again.
Absolutely.
And to all the viewers out there, stay tuned. We have some more amazing, creative, debonair guests. So stay tuned, and ngā mihi.
Awesome. That was fun. Ngā mihi, kia kōrua.
Bye.
Thank you.
Love it.